Hey guys, welcome to the session number 2 of module 1. I hope you guys are excited and pumped up to get your private label course started. So here we go. Now, again, this particular session is going to be called Brainstorming Niches and Products. Now, before I actually start, you probably have already watched the video in the start year session where I have talked about is whenever you decide into any business, or especially like private label business for Amazon FBA model, you could have two different approach. The first one is you want to release any kind of products, whether they're related or not. At the end of the day, your intent on that particular method or methodology is that you want to just make money irrespective of what you're selling, how many you're selling. It doesn't really bother you. But if you want to go with the second option, which is you want to build your brand, then you have to make sure that whenever you choose your product, or at least your first product, you are thinking it as if a brand and not just like one individual products. And that's why the slide says that build a brand and not products. That's my personal opinion. Money is to be made on either of the approach. There's no right or wrong, but this is what just I think is much better, because the amount of time that you put in building a brand obviously is much more intense. You need to put more time, you need to research more, you have to work towards your brand, but the fruits, the results that you get after a year or so are really good. And building a brand helps you to think outside the Amazon marketplace as well, whereas if you're just selling your regular products, it's just more sort of like a retail arm of the private label, because you just like trying to sell as many things as you can, as many products as you can find, and you just want to make quick bucks. Either way, none of the approach is wrong. You just have to decide which approach suits you more, depending on the life situations, like your budget, how much time you can give to private label, and where do you see yourself taking this business in future. So it will completely depend on them. Now again, I know that this, and I have actually told you this thing in my podcast episodes as well, and in Facebook group as well, that this is one of the most frustrating time that you're gonna spend on your private label business. Not because it's tough, I wouldn't say it's really tough, it's just hard to decide what to go with, because sometimes you would find either so many items that you're not sure actually which one you want to go with, and sometimes you can't just think of anything. And I know you have heard about these things which I mentioned here on this particular slide and session, but possibly I'm hoping once you actually see what I have to say about this, it will kind of give you a framework or an idea of how you go about it. And as I said in my overview session as well, don't think too much. The important thing is to take the next step and somehow launch at least one product. If that product doesn't bring you the success that what I'm teaching you, it doesn't really matter. You would have then like a framework. You would have kind of like learned how to exactly go about from start till end, and it will make it much more easier for you to actually start with the second or the third product to for your private label business. So once again, where can you find your products and ideas for private label? Very simple, which you must have heard, which you have read at a lot of places. Obviously the list is going to be more like eBay, Amazon itself, because these are the marketplaces, and those places would be the most easiest ones, because obviously you're going to sell on Amazon, and eBay again is a similar marketplace. So the products and the ideas that you could find there are going to be the ones which attract you most, because obviously most of the third-party sellers are selling there, and it will give you a better idea. Again, when we move on to the next session, each session, like say like an eBay, the session where I show you how to research on eBay and Amazon, would have an in-depth resource or research that I can show you how you go about it. But this is just to show you where you can find the idea, so you have that mindset ready for your next stage. Again, whether you're watching TV ads or you're going through magazines, newspapers, anytime you see anything that you can think of that this could be a private label product, or anything related that could be a private label product, just start noting down these concepts and the products. Even when you're traveling, if you don't have any access to this training material, you still have your notepad and where you could actually write things down on your phone. So keep recording any small thing and everything that you could think that you could kind of like launch a product, very similar product or something related to that product that you're actually watching or seeing in front of you right now. Go through your purchase history. As I mentioned earlier as well, there would be, and if you're an online shopper just like me, I hate actually to go and do shopping. My wife likes to spend a lot of time in retail outlets and shopping malls and stuff like that, but I'm not that. I kind of like shop most of the time online. So if you're like me, go through your like your purchase history, whether it's on Amazon, eBay, or supermarket history. Just go through them, and you never know, some ideas would just pop out from nowhere, and then suddenly when you start brainstorming according to that particular product, you'll start getting more and more ideas in your mind. So give every possible outlet or a way where you can actually see a product a chance to brainstorm products or categories, give it an idea around that. Now again, what I've said earlier on my podcast as well, and I'll keep saying that again and again, my bit is the one on the extreme left, but you could choose any one of these. It doesn't really matter, as long as you can come out with a product which gives you at least £5 profit. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. But when you're brainstorming your ideas, think about your passion, hobbies. It has to be, or it could be one of these, under these three kind of categories. You could try and brainstorm ideas and niches, something from what you're passionate about or your hobbies, like your sports. Which obviously I'll tell you in the next slide as well. Or it could be something which you have knowledge about. So maybe you have studied some kind of products based on your obviously academic qualifications or your experience, because you have been into that kind of industry. So say for an example, if you remember guys, I told you I worked for PC World and Currys. So at that point, when I was doing AliExpress, the easiest things at that time I could think of, because I was dealing with computers and accessories related to computers or computing or something related to my phones business as well at that time, because my friends were a couple of them into phones exporting business. So the first things that I started with, the low budget I had from AliExpress on those old days was like batteries and chargers. Now you see how I connected that. Obviously I didn't knew anything about that business, or nor did we sell any of those accessories. Most of those, like especially the phone accessories, we didn't sell in Currys, but I knew, and I used to talk about it with my friends. Okay, so this is your business. And obviously sometimes when you get around on a cup of a coffee and they talk about their businesses, and I'm talking about my workplace, that this happened, that happened, and so those things came into my mind, because they used to always talk about phones and technology, and I used to talk about computing. And then suddenly I thought, what's the cheapest product that can be sold in these categories? So things that came out was like, if it was something related to computing, it would be like USB cables, because I remember there was a lot of shops which used to sell the printer cables for £1 or £2, whereas PC World or Currys would sell it for £15 to £20, which was crazy amount of money. But some people still bought from Currys and PC World because they wanted to buy at the same time. They didn't really bother ordering online. So you see what I'm trying to say. And the last thing is anything that you use every day, whether you consume it or whether you use it in your daily usage. Now again, just a little bit of more in-depth passion. Why passion? Why find a product which you're more passionate about, or the niche you're more passionate about? It's simple. It makes it easier for you to find products you are passionate about or niche. As I said earlier, it could be your hobbies like sporting, fitness industry that you may have some knowledge about. So if you are into some similar things, you might have some knowledge about sport equipments, and like add-on products that go with it. You remember we talked about the yoga mats. So if I was something who was interested in the fitness industry, or I actually go and do yoga, I know people who I might know that people who do yoga need yoga mat. They need yoga, like a yoga mat bag. They also probably need a yoga ball. They need like water bottles to carry around with them. So things like that. And if you are passionate or knowledgeable about any of those industry, it will help you out, as I mentioned earlier. Also, you could find products you have knowledge about, as I mentioned once again. Now, for example, like if you were into like transport industry, you might be familiar with anything with auto parts or accessories that go with travel. So say if you drive a lot, or you are into industry which deals anyway with automobiles and things like that. I don't really drive that much, so say for an example, when you're driving, you need, dashboards, like, you need a mount for your sat nav, you need a mount for your phone if you're using a sat nav from your phone. I mean, I can't think of more into the auto industry, but anything similar, what I'm trying to say. You can also find, as I mentioned earlier, based on your experience, so anything you have worked around, any product or any niche, give it a try. Start noting down every small bit that you could come up with. At the moment, you are not deciding what product you want to go into. You're just trying to brainstorm the niches and the categories that you are aware about yourself, or your experience about that category. Again, last thing was, as I said, things that you use daily. Now that could be anything, right from you brushing your teeth to going to bed. Anything that you do in between those time, you start noting down that. And as you can see, I've just mentioned some of these, and these are just things that came to my mind just into 5 minutes when I was putting up this slide. So if you are passionate about music, you could be passionate about, or you could be knowledgeable about, or you have experience about, say, music, sports and outdoor, technology. That would be one of my initial thoughts if I was starting out, private label. But then I moved into my other categories as well, which I had a little bit more knowledge about, and I worked on my knowledge as well. It could be outdoor DIY, so summaries around. Some of you like to do plantation and anything related to that. We carry out houseworks around this time because of the weather in UK. As you know, most of you would start working out on your house projects soon if you have anything to be done. Home and garden, as I said, travel. So a lot of people, or a lot of you, or anyone in your family would be taking trips around these. I'm actually kind of planning as well at the moment. I'm just waiting to see once I can finish off some of the course content, so I could take a couple of days break. If you have pets, you know about pets industry, cars we mentioned earlier. If you're a girl, and especially if you're a woman, you know more about health and beauty compared to what I would know, because if you got makeup organizers. I mean, on the right hand side you'll see some of the products, but these are just the categories or niche we are talking about: clothing, toys and children. And we talked about the items that you use. So what's the usual thing you do in your day? So say for an example, once you wake up till the time you go to your work, you come back, any kind of leisure activity you do. So you start from probably say breakfast, you're eating, then your clothing, then you travel to your work, anything that you deal with, like the products and the categories at your workplace. You come back home, you normally take your pets on pet for a walk, things like that. You do driving, maybe you play games, and in your leisure time. Computing you use at your work, home. The organizers, so many different things which you'll see on the right hand side. And same or probably once you come back at home, you hit gym as well, and you work out every day. So that could be one of those niche and subcategories. Now, as I said, so since you wake up in the morning, try and note down anything and everything you can think of. So right from when you brush your teeth, toothpaste, tea, coffee, anything that you use with tea, coffee. So like say vessels that you use to prepare your breakfast, your cup, kettle, frying pan, spatula turners, bottle openers, chopping board, glass, egg cups, egg cracker, water bottle, coaster set. So anything you can see. I mean, this is just something which I came up quickly when I was just preparing this slide. I didn't have to think too much. After you have your breakfast, maybe you leave for your work. When you're traveling or when you're getting ready for your work, what do you need? Shoes, socks, clothing, your bag. If you carry a laptop at your work, it could be a laptop bag, an iPad bag or a case, the purse, handbag, your tie cover. So you normally store your tie into some kind of covers to protect it from dust and things like that. So you got a tie cover, a travel mug. A lot of people I see on the commute normally take the travel mugs because they don't want to waste time, because maybe they are late risers like me, and they they make coffee at the last time or tea at the last time, so they carry around with when they're traveling in the bus or train. Once you reach work, you got your desk, your paper tray, your organizers, pen holders. Sometimes, I mean, I have a little bit of a back pain, especially been working for at home for a long time, and especially I work at night time really bad in a way. But so I normally use like a seat cover, and I use a footrest as well, because most of the time I'm on a computer. So anything related to that, pet supplies we talked about. If you take your pet out in your car cushions for the pet, the belt, stain removers, sometime if something gets dirty in your car when you're driving, as I mentioned earlier, cleaning products, phone holder, seat pads, sat nav holder, floor mats, and if you're thinking about leisure, when summer is around the corner, as I mentioned, if you're going to go in hiking, what kind of products do you need when you hike? What kind of products do you need to carry when you're boating around? I recently saw a very popular product for the phone came out now, which is like a waterproof bag. You can put your phone in, because I remember when I wanted to go to Elton Towers and the rides as well, where there are water rides, I was more concerned about, because I don't want to put my SIM into a bulky phone, like a dust or waterproof phone, but something like a waterproof case I could take my iPhone along with me if something like that was available. Rope climbing, so it could be anything, whether you are taking a holiday, your neighbors you talk to who's probably taking a holiday, or your child is taking a holiday, or anyone in your family, the daily conversations that you have with your friends, families, anyone. Note that down, what they're talking about. Maybe something will hit your mind that this is a product. Oh my god, yeah, I never thought about this, even though I use it every day. So start noting down every small things. Organizer, which I mentioned, could be a desk organizer. Now when I thought of organizer initially, because I'm an office based guy, I thought about desk organizer, file organizer. Suddenly I remembered that my wife has a medicine organizer, jewelry organizer. So things like that would come up in your mind every time. So just one word like organizer bought me 4 different niches to think about, because medicine would be a different niche, jewelry is a different niche, whereas computing or desk organizer is a different niche. So you see what I mean? When you try and think about certain products, you will start learning and brainstorming so many different ideas. Sometimes your brain is gonna definitely get tired, and I have warned you earlier as well that this is one of the most frustrating portion of your private label journey. Once you're through this, then you will have some good success and you'll start enjoying, because human mind is like give and take unless you see some actual results. And in this case, actual result is having a final product in your hand and you selling it and making money. Until you reach that, you always gonna keep doubting whether should you do this or should you have done this or not. But keep yourself motivated and keep moving, and you will find that you'll see the results on that day, and you'll be much more happy that you went through this 2 months of grind. Once again, if you remember, everyone kept on saying that always look at the low-hanging fruit. So try and dig into a little bit more smaller or subcategories. So sports and outdoors, obviously the equipments we use, like treadmills and workout machines, those are like kind of top categories. But when you move into that, you move into fitness, then you move into yoga, and then you turned out to yoga mats. That's like your sub category in your product. So try and build a list, pick a product, pick up a list, and pick up a niche. And once you have the niche, start noting down what kind of products you would be comfortable in those niche, and validate if that. This is a very important part of my teaching, is you try and validate if that particular product has some kind of variation attached to it, because that's my teaching module. I don't teach to find or source a model which doesn't have any kind of variation or possibilities, whether it's a color variation, whether it's a size variation, or it could be a variation which you will learn in my future sessions as well, that it could just be that you are able to bundle it as well, even if there's no size or color variation, but you are able to bundle it. For example, a HDMI cable, even though there are a lot of other variations possible, like the length of the cable, but you could have another variation which could be a bundle variation, wherein you're offering 2 cables in a pack or 3 cables in a pack and things like that, or you're offering a cable tie along with your HDMI cable. Lastly, validate also if you can build your brand around the product, which is again one of the most important aspect of your private label business that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to guys kind of bore you with that concept because it's very important that you think about a brand rather than just a product, which I mentioned some things that I mentioned earlier as well. Your family, your friends, your parents, and anyone could actually help you to brainstorm your ideas as well. So when you're talking to your partner, talk about it. This is what I'm talking about. Thinking about what do you think, or probably what products that you have used in the last few days, or or something that you guys are planning to buy in near future. Speak to your kids because they are a bit more trend conscious, so they know what's trending at the moment. Speak to your friends, as I said, when you're on a cup of a coffee. even when you're having your casual talks, start listening and brainstorming on what they're saying, and start noting down, what they could have actually said something without even you thinking that this could be a product idea, or your a private label product could be developed around that idea. Speak to your parents, but as I said, listen to your heart. Again, listen to all you could, but then think and go with the product or the niche that you think is one of the best thing for you, or you have a little bit more knowledge about, or which will keep you motivated, at least with your first product, because this is going to be, once again, the most frustrating part of your business. Now, the mission of this particular session of this module is that I'm going to share with the table format that you see is just to show you, but at the end of the session, you would be able to download a PDF of the next 3 tasks or mission statements, or like tasks you need to complete for this particular session. So the first one is anything and everything which we talked about. You start noting them down, and just fill them up depending on which category they fall into, and this will help you to go back to the brainstorming, the sessions that you did. So while you were, say, traveling from work, you had an hour on the train, you could have this on your phone, you could have a paper copy as well, and start noting down. And once you come back, you would, because once you start thinking about these products, after an hour or two, you would just forget what you were thinking about in the first place. So if you had already noted these down, it will allow you to come back and then kind of validate that this is okay, this is not okay. I can build a brand about around this particular product has a variation, this doesn't have it, so I don't think so this is a good idea. So start noting them down, divide them on based on these 3 columns. Again, after you have done that, and say, for an example, if you thought, okay, I think out of everything what I thought about into passion and hobbies, based on my experience, based on the daily usage stuff that I use, I think fitness industry is something which I'm thinking that I could think of a product about, and I could build my brand around it. So you put down the branding ideas, you put down as fitness as a niche. Then you think about yoga mat, yoga balls, as we spoke about. You could be like a water bottle you need during a workout or a yoga and things like that. So on the left hand side, you start noting down the actual niche or the categories you thought about which could be good enough for your first private label product, and then you start thinking about some of the products that could possibly be the ones that you could white label or private label. So as I said, you could have more than 3 products as well, but I've just made a simple column so you could have 3. You could start having more than 3 products in that particular niche as well, or it could be different niches and 1 or 2 products in each of the niches. And the third one, so if you see, this stage is how we are moving on. First, we are just brainstorming some of the categories or niche you could be interested in. Once you have decided that, the second sheet or the task that you're doing is you are going into the sub category of that niche that you are interested in, and you have started thinking about the products. So sports and outdoors could have been the niche, your subcategory, or your products could have been into something like fitness industry we talked about. And say we then, when thinking about fitness industry, you noted down that yoga mat, a water bottle for during the workout or when you're doing yoga, and say like a yoga mat bag. So these 3 were the products which you came up with into that particular industry or the niche. Now what I'm going to do is, in this third exercise, I'm going to put the product, one of those products, say like a yoga mat. Now and then I'm going to think whether this particular product has some kind of variation attached to it. So when yoga mat comes to my mind, what could my variation be? Variation 1 could be the colors, the variation 2 could be the size of the mat, and variation 3 could be, now again, this could be 2 different ways, and the variation 3 could be actually the materials that you use. So these are the 3 possible variations my product could have, and then whichever variation I select to go with. So say if I just decided that I wanted to use color variation, then my yoga mat could have a blue, a yellow, or black yoga mat. if I decided to go with something variation like a size wise, I could have different size of yoga mats. And say the third one is the materials, because I don't really know much about yoga mats, but because I've been always using it in the examples I did in the webinars as well. But I'm sure that there are a lot of materials you can get for your yoga mat as well, depending on the thickness level, the non-slip yoga mats, and all those kind of options that you get. So I hope you're getting a little bit of idea what I'm trying to say. Now, even if you didn't want to go with all these variations, you could just have a simple variations, which is like, say your product is yoga mat, my variation 1 is green yoga mat, my variation 2 is black yoga mat, my variation 3 is a pink yoga mat. So it's completely up to you what kind of variations you can think of once you have come up with your product idea. In the end, once you complete this part of module 1, report to the academy stating brainstorming mission accomplished. It's very important. Once again, I'm going to keep saying this again and again as well, that keep sharing at what stage you are in your learning course journey, so that others can ask you something if they are stuck on a stage where you've already gone through. Maybe you can help them out and they can do that for you in some other sessions or module where you get stuck as well. So this is going to be it for the second session of the module 1, which is brainstorming ideas. And I hope, even though what I've said in this is a bit more common that you have already heard, but it has probably given you a bit more perspective how you could think of. And make sure you download this task sheets and take them print out. Don't just keep them on the computer, otherwise you can only use them for an hour or two when you're on your computer. Just take a paper copy, print them out, and take them around, whether you're traveling, whether you go to work, because you would have some time on your lunch breaks and things like that. Whenever you get time, start brainstorming and start jotting down those ideas, and I'm sure you would come up with something good enough to get your private label product to start off with that 15 sales that you need to have for the first variation of your 5-step down approach, which you're going to learn going forward in the same module. So I hope you enjoyed this section. If you find any problems, or if you think I should be doing something to helping out a bit more in each and every module, then give me a shout. I'm open to ideas. This is my first course that I've released, so I'm trying to do what I think is best. But if there's anything else needed to help you in each session, give me a shout and I'll make sure I transform them into the next sessions. So have a good day, guys, and think about it, start taking some action, and get ready for the next step, and keep updating the Facebook group where you are with your course.